Well, hello there. Welcome to SharkCast, a podcast dedicated to the greatest sporting club in the history of the world, the mighty Cronulla Sharks. I've got the giggles because this is take two, and we don't need to say why. My name is Sam Shinazzi, OG 2015, lifetime supporter. Above that, 11th season of podcasting. This is a podcast brought to you by Dyson Logistics, the Royal Motor Yacht Club in Port Hacking, and Jason Hawes at Crips and Crips Real Estate. We also get our coffee from Mr. Paisley's in North Caringbah. Speaking of coffee, my friend on the other end of the line is Mr. Kieran Fraser. He loves a coffee or two during the day, not so much at night. He's got this nightly ritual thing where he cuts off and you can't even talk to him. It's like, don't talk to me, it's nighttime. But this is his show, catching up with Kieran over coffee about Cronulla. How are you, my man? What's going on?
Mate, that was a way better start than take one. So we're absolutely flying right now. This is going to be a good podcast, but things are good, mate. Sunday Arvo game down at Shark Park. I'm really looking forward to it. It feels like we haven't had a lot of day games recently. There's a lot of Saturday night, Friday, Thursday night games. So I'm so happy to be able to walk to the ground, walk home, and not have it be like 4 degrees. So can't wait.
Yeah, we've got 3 more to come, and they're all afternoon games, so that'll be fun. Now, we're going to talk about a bunch of things on this show. We're going to talk about the game last Saturday night, and we're going to talk about a few other things going on, including the Cowboys game coming up. Before we get to that, just announced, as far as when we're recording, Chad Townsend, former Shark, former Premiership winning Shark, Shark Junior, current Rooster, former Cowboy, he has announced his retirement. So I'm assuming it's this year. So should they need him again, or should he get, but I think it's this year. And that's topical for you and I because we've watched him grow up in front of our eyes and have a pretty good career. And for me personally, big fan, love what he's done throughout his career. Obviously, the longer he's gone, I guess, the more trials and tribulations he's come across. He left the club a little bit uneasy, but forever a Shark. And yeah, what's your feelings? What's your thoughts?
I think I'll start at the beginning because when he was coming through the lower grades, you heard about this guy who was in the halves and was, like the next big thing type of player, right? And him and Stuart Mills, and didn't they have that junior career where they won like 11 titles in a row or something like that in the junior league?
Let's not leave Stuart Mills out of this. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was like this buzz. And then I remember, the 20s was on TV at the time, and first grade wasn't the best at the time, but this under 20s team that we had was like this little light of hope. And watching Chad come through, and I just remember, right before he got that debut, we weren't sort of playing him in first grade because he was still so young. And the kind of dream was like, I just want to see this Chad Townsend guy in first grade. I just want to see him up there, and Stewie Mills as well when he came through and the debut that he had. And you kind of were just really thinking that this could be the next generation of Sharks to finally put us out of our misery and take us to the promised land. But, he hung around for a little bit, but I still remember the feeling when we signed him back from the Warriors. It was a little bit weird seeing him play for the Warriors at the time because he was that guy for us. But then, bringing him and Maloney in at the same time, and, Ennis had only arrived like 12 months before, was a real change of the guard. And, 2016, he'll forever be a part of that. He's, a club legend for that fact alone. There's only 17 players that get to say they've won a comp for the Sharks, right? And he was one of those guys. So, an amazing career. And it's a little bit surprising. I would have thought maybe a season in England or two, but I guess, he's got a lot of kids. So it'd probably be very hard to take a young family like that over to the north of England for a year or two, right? So he's doing a lot of work in media. So, yes, good luck to him.
I think he could probably do a year in Super League, but as you said, moving the family, the money, I'm sure would be good over there, but I mean, he's a smart guy. He's made in, he's not doing poor financially as far as I'm aware. And he's very smart when it comes to that kind of stuff. And as you said, he's pushing the media career as well. So he's going to be fine. But yeah, I posted something from the SharkCast pod account. It said, your dream was our dream, and that was achieved in 2016. I mean, the dream was to play for them, and that's also our dream, which we'll never live out. But the ultimate dream was to win the comp. He did that, the only local junior to do so at this point in time. And a big part of that 2016 season, like I find myself watching highlights from that year a lot, and we'll talk more about that in the coming weeks about a little project we'll be doing. But he was far more significant than a lot of people want to give him credit for. And that's fine. That's people's opinions, but I'm not really into rewriting history. He was a important part of that. And as you say, the masterstroke to bring him back from the Warriors, he was okay at the Warriors. Like, he showed a lot of improvement at the Warriors. And then to bring him back, I can't remember the exact situation, but I reckon Chad would have been jumping through hoops to get back to the club he loves, and especially what they were building. And yeah, he got to do it, and fantastic stuff. I don't know if we'll see him again in first grade. It'd be kind of, I guess, ironic. I don't know what the word is, that if his last game ever was at Shark Park, it's kind of fitting, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't have the best performance that night, and
No.
you know that was great because you're a Sharks fan. But again, like I think there's a little bit of stuff there towards the end that kind of morphed people's perception of Chad, but it also, I think that was kind of symbolic of where we were as a team, and the style of player that Chad wasn't really the style that we needed at that time. And you look, he went to the Cowboys, he had some good success at the Cowboys. It didn't end out too well in the end there. But again, it showed that he still had a lot left in the tank. But I just think it was a timing thing. And I think that's kind of the highlight of his career, was timing and being in those places. And full credit to him for going to the Roosters this year to do the role that he did, with going and signing there to be that veteran leader and as a backup half. And then injuries meant that he got thrown in the deep end. So, I'll always respect that. And again, he won a comp for the Sharks. So, what a guy for that. But yeah, it's been a wild ride, the Chad ride, and I'd love to get his perspective on his relationship with the club, because it started with those photos of him with ET in the dressing sheds and things like that too, right? So it's what a journey, mate. As you said, he lived the dream that we all wish we did.
Absolutely. And we've had him on the show probably probably more than 3 or 4 times. We've done, I think, 2 big interviews with him. One was during COVID. He was kind enough to give me his time during COVID. I think it was about an hour chat. We talked about the premiership. So go back and listen to that if you can. Well, you can definitely find it. But yeah, haven't interviewed him since then. He almost came on, kid you not, the week of the Cowboys finals game in 22. He sort of loosely agreed to it. And then he went, "Oh, actually, I probably shouldn't be doing that." And I went, "No, you shouldn't be doing it either." So he didn't come on, which is totally fine. I'm sure he'll come on in the future. So we can maybe get some feelings out of him about that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's Chad's career announced, at least. Maybe he'll get one more game. We'll see what happens. But that's the Chad. We wish him all the best for the future. And I've got to say, yeah, big supporter of the podcast since day one. Whether it was the SharkCast TV we were doing, whether it was podcasting, he actually came to me with looking for advice about podcasting gear and that kind of stuff. He won't mind me saying that. And so we've had a bit of a connection there, and just a real professional guy, but a guy that never sort of lost the fun and everything. Like, he's he's happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but he sees it as a business as well as the game he loves. Anyway, that's enough on the Chad. We might get to him in the future. In definitely more sadder news, we've lost 2 great Sharks in the past week, my friend. Do you want to take us up on there? Let's start with Taite.
Yeah, so Taite, who was Jersey Man 67, I believe, on Instagram, was a really big collector of retro jerseys. Not talking like the releases of stuff. Like, he would go and find the authentic things. And I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. He was a bit of a pest to some of the players. Like, he would message them and say, "Look, have you got any spares? Like, do you want to sell anything?" And always hustling, always grinding, a big smile on his face whenever you'd see him. And just always, just had a real love for the Sharks. And unfortunately, we lost him about 10 or 12 days ago. He's survived by a young family as well. So there is a fundraiser, which I know that you'll touch on in a little bit as well.
Let's get to it now. Saturday, 31st of August. It's 1:00 at the Art House Hotel in the city. And if you are free to go there, if you're able to get there, there is a whole bunch of things happening. They're going to have the Sharks versus Knights game on the big screen. There's going to be an auction of a lot of his gear. So the families, yeah. So if you're a Sharks collector, or even just a footy collector, Taite, as you said, had a lot of stuff, and they're going to sell it in the name of aiding the family financially, and I'm sure he would be completely okay with that. There's also going to be just a bit of a celebration of his life. So if you knew Taite, and there's a lot of our listeners did, because he was a massive, I'm not saying that to, he was a massive SharkCast guy, and he would pester me. He won't mind me saying he would pester me a lot, and we actually had some really good chats. Only about a week before he passed away. It's super sad. Passed away really suddenly, and he was actually posting about things the day he passed away. So and a lot of our listeners, I believe some of our listeners at least were messaging him that day. So it's very sad. So if you're new, Tate, try and get along. You'll see a lot about his fundraiser leading up to it, but it's August 31st. A lot of people probably won't be able to get there as a spoiler because it is the Sharks home game against the Knights. But there are other ways you can donate financially, auction, etc. So we'll keep talking about that throughout the coming weeks. But very sad, and we send our love to his family and friends. A lot of people who listen to the show, and yeah, he was a good guy. Like he actually, I asked him about it. I said, how are you getting all this stuff? And he wasn't shy about it. He said, I badger the players, and he said most of them are pretty good, and because they have a lot of excess gear. Let's not kid ourselves. At the end of the year, and he found a way to make it work for everyone, but ultimately just a guy who loved the club so much, and there's hundreds of thousands of people like him out there, and things like this really bring it home. Just, I don't have to tell you, Kieran, how fragile life is, because you and I, we spend our time just worrying about life. We're worriers, you and I, and we usually worry together. But very, very sudden passing, and we send our love and respect to his family. And on a similar note, slightly different end of the spectrum, but very respected man in the community of Sharks, particularly online, went by the name of Frenzy, has also passed away. Do you want to take us up there, Kieran?
Yeah. Frenzy was a really good friend of mine. It goes back to about 2001. It's hard for me to talk about because, I spoke to him all the time. And
you don't have to if it's too much.
No. It's just hard to speak about out loud because, again, like he was somebody that spoke to him all the time about the Sharks, and he was even like an hour before he passed away was talking about the Sharks. And he was a big listener of the podcast. He's someone I've been speaking to since 2001 when I was a kid, just googling the Sharks, and I didn't have anyone to talk to about the Sharks because I didn't live in the area, and I was only child. So I just had no one really to talk to about it. And, he was just this big presence, and, that's 24 years ago, right? So he's been, a tremendous figure, and it's not going to be the same online without him. But in true Frenzy fashion, he would have made a joke about missing that South game because he would have said, I picked the exact time to do it. Unfortunately, he did pass, in the end, it was at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. But he did have a heart attack around, I think, 5:36-ish. So just before the Sharks game. So, look, devastating loss. There's some really good tributes out there for him, but he was one of a kind. He really brought together the Sharks online community before there was Instagram or podcast.
Yes. So let's tell the people who don't know what we're talking about that. So there are two main forums, as far as I'm aware, at this point in time about the Sharks. Both really great, different styles. But I think the OG, I'm correct in saying the OG is League Unlimited, and that's where I first came across him and a whole bunch of other crazy Sharks fans, including yourself, without knowing it. But absolute lunatics. I'm going to say this. I think I'm correct in saying a very male-dominated, at least then, place, and just an online forum. So you guys know how the forums work. There's a bunch of topics, and you just go for it, and you see what's latest. And I really started using those probably around the Chris Anderson kind of era, and they were firing up then. And I remember in 2005, my first trip overseas, it was around trial time, and so I was missing trials, and that was my, people like Frenzy and other people were just like every minute, blow by blow at trial match, Ryan McGoldrick, he's the next big thing, like, oh, cool, okay. And so I'm in New York at 3 a.m. just like following these posts. There were no podcasts, there was no live coverage. That was it. Dudes at the ground on League Unlimited. And it's been a presence, before that and ever since. A lot of great characters. And he was one of the kings, and very involved in the online supporters, and real legend. So a lot of people are hurting, and we send our love out to him. And just if you if you do hop online and want to see what we're talking about, go to League Unlimited. There's a whole forum page for every different sort of club and thing you can imagine. And there's the Sharks one. And there'll be a lot of tributes there flowing, I'm sure, for our friend. So we send our love and respect to his family and his friends, of course, many of whom listen. And it's a tough one. And yeah, you wonder what his thoughts would have been after that game, which we'll get into.
He was really into the Jets game, and he was discussing that. But again, if it was juniors, the NRLW, New South Wales Cup, anything like that, he was absolutely across it. I've even got, I found some emails the other day from 2004 or something like that, where he was emailing Sludge about Brett Kamali's goal kicking, and then Sludge writes back, if I wanted to buy a goal kicker, I'd just go buy Joel Kane. And then a couple of weeks later, we signed Luke Cavell. So, he was super involved and, fiery to the death, like literally, like he was in there and throwing jokes around and all that type of stuff. So he was one of the greats, mate. He was a really good friend to me. I first met him on Beer Hill back in like 2005. I wasn't even 18 yet. Actually,
great place
it
to
must have
be.
been before 2005 because I wasn't 18. But anyway, he bought me a beer on Beer Hill. So that tells you what type of guy he was. So I'm going to miss you, mate.
Yeah, we will definitely miss him. And yeah, Beer Hill is a classic. And people who know what we're talking about, it's a classic place for a frenzy to be, Beer Hill. I mean, I dare say a lot of people miss those two that specific, those two areas, but that specific location. And we're talking below where the Chinese restaurant will be again, right there. The very boisterous place to be. Had some good times there. The sun blinding down on you. Had too many beers. You're learning words you never heard before.
Couple of fights.
But yeah, we send our love to Frenzy and to Taite, and we know they're somewhere and they're hearing us and they're looking down upon us. So all the best to their families and friends, that's for sure. I know that those two would love us to get into the Saturday night game, Kieran, because boy, oh boy, what a spectacle that was. And you know what? The more I come away from that, the longer the time passes, the more I'm okay with it. And it's not so much okay in the sense of like, that was beautiful. It's more just, it was a game. We won the game. If they're doing that every week, I think we got some issues. They haven't even come close to doing that every week. That's the good news. But what did you make of it? What do you think now? I mean, we know the negative. The negative is they had a million chances to score some points and they didn't. We get that. And that's not good enough. But what's your overall thoughts?
It was everything that I thought it was going to be leading into it. It
Really?
delivered because South were really having a dig for Wayne Bennett, and they don't want Bennett to get the spoon. And the team that they put out there, respectfully, and I watched the Jam and Cheese podcast before this, and Cheese actually had a slip up. He called their team that they put out there a four-letter word that I'm not going to repeat, but it starts with S. And as soon as he said it, he backtracked. He's like, no, like we young players, we really having a dig. But I think the point with that was it was all effort by South. And I think that we truly had scars from going to that game up on the Central Coast against a very depleted Roosters, a few months ago. I mean, I even had scars. I considered it as late as like 3:00, getting in the car and driving up there to watch it and see some family. And I just said, no, I'm not doing it. I just don't want to be in that environment. After what happened last time, I'll stay at home and watch it. And I liked it at the start, how we took the two. It kind of showed us, all right, look, we're not going to take this team lightly. We're going to get into a grind and do these things. But anything that could kind of go in South's favour, and this is not putting any credit on the Sharks at all, because we did not execute. But like Nico with the forward pass, Nico getting over the line, the ball not getting down. There was a number of these little moments that happened. Like Will Kennedy makes the break and, we couldn't back him up. That if we actually execute those, it's a very different scoreline.
Chris Baylor forward pass to Ronaldo.
Exactly, right? So there were so many of these little things that happened that I think just kept compounding as the game went along. And you want to win ugly and all that type of stuff, but you don't want to be in those sort of games where it's 14-12 versus South. The one thing I will say, and I jumped on the stream and I didn't want to go on camera, but I throw it in the text, is the South tries came from some absolute clangers from the referee that I hadn't seen before, even to the point where a sixth tackle gets redone again because we didn't call it the sixth tackle. It was just one of those games where you just want to get out of there. And Fanua Blayke put up the post on Instagram after with the hands to the side emoji and said, we'll take it and move on. And I think we've got to do that and just keep moving because, as Cooper Cronk said, that weekend the Warriors didn't get it done and the Broncos didn't get it done. And that's, two teams that we're potentially fighting against.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this is a case of Sharks fans being spoiled and having that spoiled opinion, because I've said that before this year that, we blow up about anything. And when I say we, I'm talking about a general part of the fan base. I'm not necessarily talking about me or you or the person listening, but there's a bunch of people who blow up about anything, and that's their right. That's fine. But you're correct. We won the game. Imagine the blow up if we didn't win the game, So I thought we were the better team. I thought that Souths were super courageous. They were god-awful in attack. They had no attack. So that means two things. It means we defended really well, but we defended really well against a team that had no attack. But we also pinned them down the other end. Kicking game was great. And for whatever reason, I think it was a combination of Souths being fit and good in defense and us being clunky, that the attack just wasn't happening. And as you said, there was a few examples there, 3 or 4 you just pointed out. It could have been a 20-point difference, and we wouldn't be talking about this.
Yeah, I think the one thing when I was watching the game, I was looking at some of the stats, and on average, South were making like 20 meters, 23 meters, 18 meters a set. They were not going anywhere. And then Dodd did a couple of nice kicks and got him out of a little bit of trouble. But then we'd just go 70 meters back up the field and we'd be back in their 20. And it was just a rinse and repeat of the same sort of clunkiness. And I genuinely would not expect to see something like that again. I do think that there was a lot of scars from the Roosters game. And that's something that we've got to shake, because, again, now when we play the Cowboys at home, the Cowboys just had a nice win. It's not going to be that style of game. I just think everybody went into that game of like, oh no, we're up against a team that has nothing to lose. The coach that they're playing for, some of those guys were probably playing for contracts. And the Sharks, it was all on them to not stuff things up. And if we actually executed on those 4 or 5 points that we didn't, it's a very different scoreline. Everyone just moves on and we never talk about that game again. But the fact that we didn't get it done, I just think points back to that. And again, it's so good that it is in the bank and behind us now, because that is a tricky game. And I think there's a couple more tricky games coming up between now and the end of the season, especially that Dragons one, right? So they need to get this out of their system.
They do. I think that you can make a case for every single game being tricky in a way, because Cowboys can score a lot of points real easy. They can't defend. The Dragons put 28 on them last week. They can't defend. We've seen the Knights Jekyll and Hyde stuff. Titans the same. So Titans just beat the Warriors. So it's like there's no easy games, but you'd still want to, because we're trying to catch up, you want to be playing these teams. Like, it's fine. They just got to get the wins. They got one last week. That was great.
As long as it's not in Gosford, I think we're going to be okay. And I don't say that as a joke. I genuinely believe it was the fact that it was at the same venue, the same circumstances, and all the expectation was on us. They didn't handle that very well.
Well, all the talk leading up to it from fans, from media, was how are you going to, and I was responsible as well. I was asking the same questions to the players. How are you going to cope? Because it's the same situation, if not worse. Definitely worse. Like, it's a worse than the Roosters. So they can, as Fanua Blayke said, they can say, well, we won. We did it. And at this point of the time of the year, 6 weeks out from the finals, it probably doesn't really matter how you play. I mean, a week or 2 out from the finals, it matters. But you just want to win. You want to win.
Yeah, and Gary touched on this on the post-game show, and it wasn't something that I probably comprehended, because my expectations were we go out there and we just blow South off the park and we move on to next week in good form. But having guys like Siffa pull out on the day of the game through sickness, the Nakora not being there situation, there was a couple of little clunky things that I think played into it. And Cooper Cronk, again, I really respect his opinion and love watching him break down the game. He was one that kind of called it in the post game, talking about how like guys like Nakora and Siffa straighten up our attack a lot. And I think that was missing a little bit, because sometimes when you're defending, a couple of meters out from your goal line, it's just not you don't have the space to get things done. And I saw someone put a criticism up on the Sharks saying they only scored tries from in 10 meters. And I felt like saying, do you watch Sharks games? Because we're terrible in the 10, 20 meter zone. Like our tries are coming from like halfway breaks and things like that.
Yeah, that was our friend, the Retro Rugby League dude, and he did DM me. I don't want to like break kayfabe, but he DM'd me and he goes, "It's just a bit of banter," and I went, "I know, you're just getting likes and posts, and I get it. You're cool." And we have to say he's a big supporter of Taite's fundraiser as well. So we do appreciate what Retro Rugby League Man is doing. But yeah, he was having a bit of a razz, and a lot of people picked him up on the fact that he's a Roosters guy, and we whipped them 2 weeks ago, and so.
Yeah, but look, our attack is not great. It is sometimes it is hard to watch the Sharks play, and that was a classic example of the Sharks being hard to watch.
Yeah, but it's never that bad. It's never that hard.
No. And again, they stick those passes. Nico gets the ball down. A couple of these little things. South's 2 tries, like that last one, and you can go back and listen to every episode of SharkCast. I never complain about the refereeing performances, but when there's the arm between the ball and the line,
the ref was bad. We know that. You're allowed to say it. The ref was bad.
Sam.
I've never seen some of those circumstances, and I've been watching the game for 40 years or whatever. I've never seen it. So
kicked into Teague's head. Teague didn't even put his hands up to defend it, and then he's called played at like. It was just a calamity of the whole game was just one that you wanted to get out of and just move on as quickly as possible. So thank goodness we're back on Sunday because I never want to watch. I'll tell you a fun story. So I've got a Foxtel IQ box, right? And I just record every Sharks game just to have it there. But then you realize you can actually just stream all these things anyway. You don't need to have them saved on anything. That game was so bad, Sam. I pushed the delete all button on 93 episodes of Sharks games that I had saved on that box.
Oh no! Going how far back?
Probably 2019 or so. But again, you can just literally go in there and stream them anyway. So there was no point in me keeping them on there. I was at 93% capacity. So I just thought, you know what? It's time for this to all go because I'm not going back.
I'm a big deleter. I'm flying pretty high. I'm about 97 every day. I'm like, what can I get rid of here?
Mate, I'm down to 3% now, mate. So if you need any space, you can come over here and I'll record some stuff for you.
The only thing I'll say about the referee on the weekend was with the tackle order, the tackle count. Sorry, they do have, and I've said this before, they do have 2 or 3 people in their ear helping them along. Now we don't know if they got it wrong up in the ref's box up in the grandstand. They may have had it wrong, and then she had it wrong, or maybe it was just her. I don't know. We probably won't find out. But it's a hard one to get wrong. It really is. So
just replay the play. Like I've not seen that in my years, and maybe it's happened and I can't remember.
Maybe.
But I've been watching this for a very long time. I've never seen them actually replay a tackle like that.
Yeah, the point is it shouldn't be happening. That's the
absolutely.
Now we did have Toby Rudolph majorly concussed, at least in the moment. Majorly concussed. He's okay now, but he will miss this week. And we're recording this before the team's announced, so we're not going to go through the team, but I can tell you whether he's picked or not. I think he might be in the 22, but I think tall Tom Hazelton's super close, so he may be playing against the Cowboys. You'll find that out by the time you hear this probably, but there are troops coming back, and I do believe that KL Iro will be before the finals, which is great, so he might get a game or 2 before the finals. He's trending that way, so there's a bit of hope with some of those guys coming back. It'll strengthen what we're doing. I thought the forwards last week, and I said it on the post-game show, were pretty good. I thought the issue was with the 1 to 7s, to be honest. Not a great game, man. It was one of those games where I truly was sitting there watching it and thinking, I don't know the last time I'd felt this frustrated. And I'm talking a long time. I'm not talking some random game in 2019 or whatever. I mean, back to the Frenzy's glory years of 2011, that kind of era, like Chad Townsend's debut 2011. I'm talking 15 years or so. It was that they just were not clicking at all. And I kept looking at the stats. I had the stats next to me, and it was like, okay, they've been in the opposition half 100 times compared to 5 for this. It's what? So, I was pretty frustrated. However, as I said, there were positives. We got the win, kicked well, forwards were good, played down the other end. They were smart in what they were doing in a lot of ways. It just wasn't so smart with the inside 20.
Yeah, the execution was not good. And it's, there's a famous saying I won't repeat, but it's like, so what, right? It didn't get done. So you've got to get it done, right? And I think that's the big key point there, because they were good enough to create at least another 4 try-scoring opportunities, but the execution let them down. And I look back at this and I just think it was nerves and that whole situation that was in. So again, getting that behind you is really good, because now you've got a Cowboys team, and I'm very happy the Cowboys won, because again, it's much better to come up against a team like that, because that's that kind of mentality that you take them serious. And we've spoke about this as recently as last week. I expect the Sharks to go on a run here until that Bulldogs game, and then see where the chips land. So we've got to finish as high on the table as possible. There's a real possibility that we could finish 6th or 7th and have Penrith in week 1. And if we're going to have that, we want to try and avoid that. We've got to get past Penrith. And those teams have a bit of a tricky ladder. I don't know if you've played around on the ladder predictor yourself. But
I don't need to, because everyone else is. I don't need to.
I did, and I had the Sharks finishing 6th. Because, again, I think Penrith's got a few more wins in them, and so do the Broncos. But, again, it's going to be a lot of twists and turns between now and the end of the season. And we saw that with the Warriors and with the Broncos on the weekend. So we cannot be in that boat. So I'll take the Sharks winning like that in a poor form versus those results any day of the week.
Definitely. All we have to do is keep winning. That's all you got to do. It's actually in their hands. I know other things have to happen, but it's in their hands that they just got to keep winning. And the draw actually favors them. We've had some tough things this year as far as draw goes. We finally hit the point where it's going pretty good. 3 home day games, you better tick those ones off as a given, as a like they have to happen. And then the other games, aside from potentially the Bulldogs, they're not too bad. I mean, Cogra Derby's always a bit fiery, but we put 50 on them last year, or whenever it was recently. So that's all doable. But just got to keep winning. So Cowboys this week, it's a 4 o'clock kickoff, 4:05 kickoff down at Shark Stadium. We're going to be down there having some fun, which is awesome. Not a double header of NRLW, I have to note to you, Kieran. I think I might have told you or told a few people, but that's not till the Newcastle game, I believe. But you can check that out for yourself. But there'll be another game on before it, I'm sure, probably Flag or something like that. But it's not NRL Dub, because NRL Dub is in Newcastle for Magic Round.
Oh, wow.
And I was down on Sunday at the stadium to watch Sharks v West Tigers NRLW team. They got the job done as well. It was pretty tight.
On the bell.
But they just had to win. They got to get a few wins under their belts, and then we can see how they're going to go. But they've definitely got a really good team. They got a lot of injuries, Kieran. The NRLW team's just injuries all over the shop.
With the young fullback that they got from the Roosters, I can't remember her name at the moment.
Jada.
Jada. Yeah, the one that had that great try in Origin, and she just hasn't seemed to be able to get on the field. What's going on there?
Yeah, so she was ACL, I believe, and she has been ready to come back. I think there's been a few hiccups along the way, and the last thing I heard was, might not be for a little while, hopefully this year, but might not be for a little while. They're still waiting on a few things. So from what I've heard, it won't be next week or anything. I think we were under the impression it would be real soon, but it might be a case of a month or so. They're being very, very careful with it, as you would need to be with that kind of thing. So, yeah. But just injuries all over the place, but still a really good team, and they can do damage. They just got to get it happening. So it's been a lot of fun watching the NRL Dub team so far. But yeah, Magic Round for that competition in Newcastle. So it'll be fun if you're heading up there. And we have Cowboys 4 o'clock. Now, what are you expecting on Sunday?
Well, first of all, I definitely expect a Sharks performance that is worthy of what this team is capable of. And I think now, as we kind of get that 5 weeks out or so from the finals, I want to start seeing that progression and that building. And I want to start seeing some really key players starting to step up. And, I must say, I think on the weekend, I really like Jesse Colquhoun off the bench. I thought he was really, came on and made a bit of a point of difference. And, a few guys like that, if they can start getting into their bit of form and start pushing the other guys, having the core back, hopefully Siffer is back as well, Hazleton around the corner, Iro, imminently as well. Just start building week on week, because this Cowboys team is unpredictable and can put on points. But again, to your point, they can concede points quite easily as well. But again, it's another team that is fighting for their coach, and it's not going to be a pushover. So they've got a lot of points in them, and they've exploited us before. So Again,
Yeah.
I always talk about this one when we talk about the Cowboys. Fitzgibbon and Payton started at the same time. They have one more finals game, I believe, than we have in this period. But all the talk has always been about how the Sharks can't get certain things done. The same talk doesn't get applied to the Cowboys until only recently. This is a chance for the Sharks to show there is a substantial distance between the two clubs.
I might pull you up on the fact that you think they're fighting for their coach. I got a feeling they're not fighting for their coach. I don't think anyone wants him there, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's been one of those ones where it just hasn't seemed to click. And you don't know now if maybe he wants to jump too, because there's potentially a job in Newcastle that could be available soon, and there's the Gold Coast situation. So we come up against these sort of teams in this mix, the Knights and the Titans. So, I do take your point, absolutely, that I don't know if they are playing for him, because there has been some performances where they've looked really disconnected from what their values have been.
I guess I was just being very specific. Like, they'll probably play well, but it may not be for him.
Yeah. And so I think we're kind of in that mix at the moment, right, where that adds a level of unpredictability, I believe, to the Cowboys, because there could be some players that are fired up to prove that they're right and he's wrong. Or there might be some other ones that are just loyal soldiers, like, when Cam McInnes was at the Dragons, and was it McGregor who was the coach at the time? And, McGregor was off here, but Cam was his captain. He's like, no, I'm doing it for Mary. So you just never know when teams are in this sort of little up and down.
So we've got Titans, we've got Knights as well. Dragons, I mean, they're pretty secure, but very unpredictable. And Doggies at home, so it's at their home.
On paper, we should have a really good run, but there is a different reality to that.
Yeah. I think it's a case of what we saw on the weekend, where you stick to your plan, whether your plan's going good or not. I mean, I think around the sort of 60-minute mark on the weekend, the plan needed to change. I don't know what, maybe more kicking or something. I'm not sure, but I like the fact defensively they've been pretty strong for 3 or 4 weeks now. And so if they stick to that against a team like the Cowboys and the Titans in particular, I think we'll be fine. I think we'll get the win. I don't think they'll score too many points. If we go away from that structure, then they're good teams in attack. Like the Titans can attack, Cowboys can attack. Newcastle, not so much, but they are a bit unpredictable. So they're not easy games, but they're the games that I'd rather be playing, to be perfectly honest. If I'm playing catch-up football, which we are.
And then you throw in a bye into the mix, and then you throw in a really good test in round 26. And again, we don't know what the Bulldogs are going to be playing for at that stage. Are they going to rest players or anything like that? But that Bulldogs game could be the finals coming a week early and give everybody a really good test. The dream scenario for us would be us playing for a top 4 spot. But again, there's a lot of things that has to happen between now and then. But if we could put ourselves in a situation where we beat the Dogs, go into the top 4, then you've got some momentum and you can build off that. If we limp into the finals in 7th spot, then we're making up the numbers.
It's such a dangerous place for, I think, the 2025 Sharks to be that Canterbury game, because everything's on the line. Playing for top 4, it's a lot of pressure. We're 5th and they're 4th, and nothing can be done about it. So we're playing their reserve grade team. Maybe we're playing a bunch of our stars. I don't know. We got to beat the reserve grade Bulldogs. A lot of pressure. Like, there's pressure no matter where you look. I think, to be fair, they've brought this upon themselves, because there's been Canberra. Hold on for 20 seconds. Come on. 1 second. Brisbane Tigers. So there are reasons why people in the rugby league world don't believe in them. Now, that doesn't affect the Sharks. They only need 20 guys to believe in them. That's it. So as long as they believe, that's all I care about. But yes, the Bulldogs game, and I think we saw it early on. We were like, oh, that's interesting. And we probably thought we'd be higher than them, to be fair. No one really saw them coming like that, and we thought we'd be a bit better. So it's a super delicious one, that's for sure. And, if you're going to be winning premierships, you got to beat them wherever they play, and no matter what the circumstance, you got to get it done. So
I think that's just a good test for us to have, right before the finals. And again, hopefully there's a couple of balls in play there, so it means something for both teams, and there's not players rested, but because you don't really want to go in the finals after a bye versus some lowly ranked teams that
a good point.
have what to play for. So I think it's a good chance for both teams to kind of set themselves up for that back end of the season. But again, it won't mean anything if they don't get the job done between now and then. And the job it's a very achievable job of what they've got based on who the Sharks are and what their identity is, and the players and the talent that they've got, and the team that they're facing, the situations that they're all in, which is sometimes a perfect storm for a Sharks fan, mate. And that's why I did not travel up to the Gosford on the weekend.
Yeah, but bless those that did. Our friends of the Shark Cage are up there, and we always have a good traveling contingent. There's a lot of Sharks fans up there, as you know, as well. So got the job done. It didn't feel like it, and that's okay. Like sometimes, I kind of always try to get across the message to our listeners that it's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to be great. Sometimes you just win, and that's okay. Yeah. And sometimes you lose, and it's okay. Like it's okay to lose. I know that sounds horrible, but sometimes it just happens. And our week would be a lot different if they hadn't have won that game.
Yeah, and I was watching another podcast, the Buy Round, and they did a rolling 10-year ladder over the last 10 seasons of where clubs were ranked. And the Sharks finished 4th over the last 10 years. So
it's been a good 10 years.
That's a really good sort of sample size for where we're at. And again, when you look at the resources that we have and all the stuff that we've got behind the club, a club like the Broncos finished 6th. And I think the Dragons finished like 14th or 15th. So again, it's a bit of perspective there that whilst we want more success and we want to get things done, this is a club that absolutely we should be proud of and bats way above its average, because there is no way that we should be up there in the top 4 with like Penrith and the Storm and things like that, based on the resources and that we have available to us. So again, sometimes it's very frustrating, and sometimes because you win so many of these games and we don't see the success in September, it becomes more frustrating. But again, I'll take what we've got at the moment over, certainly a lot of other clubs, because it's only going to get more diluted over the next few years as Perth and PNG come in, and whoever the 20th is.
Yeah. Now, what did you make of the Brailey contract scenario? You happy? You good?
Well, so I never comment on things on Facebook, and I stay away from these things. But right before I was waiting for this to kick off, I saw a post from the Mole about Puru. And Puru, he said, a number of clubs are interested in a young halfback, Puru, from the Cronulla Sharks. He's doing great in New South Wales Cup. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to say something here. And I just put the link to the fact that he re-signed on the 8th of May. So not even 3 months ago, he already has signed his contract that he's now talking about might be leaving. So to the point, mate, the media is going to do a lot of bang-ups and all this type of stuff.
Yep.
And it doesn't even seem like they're far apart. Like it seems like he wants a slight upgrade. The Sharks are happy to give it to him. We've said, let's do 3. He said, I'd like 5. But because he's got the extra year on the contract, that becomes 4 versus 6. Like this, you're not worlds apart here. And, I do a lot of negotiations in work and things like that. And I think that when you're haggling over 12 months for a guy who will be like 32 or something like that when it's finished, it's going to be fine. They'll get that sorted.
Yeah, there's a lot going in Cronulla's favour. And I do want to give a shout out to a listener or viewer called Caitlin. Caitlin has been in touch a lot, which is awesome. And she's just absolutely terrified that her favorite player is going to leave. And I keep telling her it's going to be okay. And I know this almost for a fact. And she doesn't seem to be believing me. Oh, she does. Like she wants to believe, but she just needs to see that contract signed. And I said, we probably won't see it for a while, but he's not going to go anywhere.
I reckon they'll do. I don't think he hits November 1. Put it that way. I think they'll get it sorted before then. And we've touched on this a number of times here when we talk about the class of free agents that we've got coming up for next year and the players that can talk to other clubs like the Euros of the world and things like that. And Fox Sports touched on it a little bit too. And you sort of saw Hooper had the mechanics in his head, and he was looking at our roster, and he sort of identified the fact that we've got Toby and Hamanueli and a sizable chunk of change that's available for middles. That is coming off contract for, November 1st for the season after, right? So I think there might be some movement there purely based on just speculation of roster management, things like that, because when we signed some of these contracts, the certain players weren't where they were right now, right? So guys like Colhoun have developed, and, we brought in Fanua Blayke, and there's been a number of different changes that we probably didn't anticipate. And if you look around the league, South are desperate for a front rower. Like the Knights are looking to fill the Leo Thompson leaving. The West Tigers are always in the mix for a new player. Manly, the criticism on them is that they don't have a strong middle. So those guys, and I'm not trying to push anyone out the door, but they will be desired by other clubs because, again, they've got experience. they're 100+ game NRL front rowers, right? And they're hard to come by at this current point in time. So I think there might be some movement there, and that might allow us to keep a few players, and definitely Brailey would be one of them.
Yeah, and you see guys like Toby's come back from injury really well, and even BHU the last couple of weeks getting a bit of praise from people he wouldn't normally get praise from. I know the coach, I don't think he was on record, but the coach off record had some really high words of praise for BHU very recently. And that becomes attractive to other people. And as you say, we're not pushing these two guys out, but just talking about two of the more experienced guys that we know have been sought after in the past few years. So there are different ways to make this happen, but I think regardless, I know that Brailey's going to stay, and I understand that you want to get it done sooner rather than later. I understand the media going, oh, well, he's rejected the contract. Well, you know what? They're right. He rejected the contract, but it's not the only one he's going to be offered by the Sharks.
Yeah.
And the Sharks want him, and he wants to stay. That's the beautiful thing. He's not looking to leave. So if it was a different player, if it was someone without the ties to the club, without the history to the club, without the love for the area, without putting down roots in the area, etc., I think that it'd be a different story. I think that a Meninga would come along with the open checkbook and go, well, look, we can give you this. I'm sure he still will, but what he can't give him is what he's already got, and that's happiness where he lives, the family history, the connection with the club. And that doesn't mean the same thing for every single player. There are other players who'd go, oh no, I'm going to follow the checkbook. And you can't say that's wrong. With a Blayke Brailey, that's not going to happen. He wants to get it. He wants to get paid, and he deserves to get paid.
Yeah.
But something would have to go horrifically wrong for this deal to not go through.
Yeah, and just a couple of things that I'll touch on there. I saw a podcast with Ronaldo Mulatalo, and he sort of said he signed his contract till the end of 2028 with the view of looking to go to things like Japanese rugby then because of the body and things like that, right? So again, Ronaldo would be like 29 or so at that point, and that's a chance for him to really cash in and to make his big bucks. But you look at a guy like Blayke Brailey, right? This Perth thing is not new. Like, people have known that Perth are coming in now for a couple of months. And when the talk that Perth was coming in, it was Api Coruscant is going there. Talon De Silva is going there. And all these guys have since gone and signed these contracts and got these things sorted out. So my point is these players and their management are well aware of what they want to do and where they want to go. But even Braith Anastas said it when they tried to make it into a segment on NRL 360. He almost laughed and just said, well, look, I think it's all about nothing. Given his ties to the community, the fact his family works all for the club, I think there's a whole lot of nothing, and he'll re-sign for the Sharks on a really good deal for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if it was possible, this is just complete make-believe from me, but if it was possible to get Jayden back as a benchy, say Blayke was only a 40-minute player, they'd probably look at it because he's a good player. And I guess my point is the Brailey name in that club is probably stronger than the general fan is aware of. Like, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that they've been a part of for a while now. And it's good stuff. It's not bad stuff. It's all good. Like, it's positivity. And my point about Jayden was a bit excessive just there, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think he's going anywhere. I kind of know he's not going anywhere. So.
Yeah, and it goes back even a decade ago when he was, under 16s, and we had Reece Robson at the club as well. And Reece has effectively come out and said, well, look, it was really hard for me to get a job at the Sharks when Blayke Brailey's there, right? And now all the talk is that Blayke is about to take Reece's job in New South Wales, and a good friend of the show, Dave, has come out sort of saying, well, if Australia doesn't pick him, England might. So again, like, these sort of things are all kind of going in the right direction. But I would love to see Blayke play representative football. It's only good for the Sharks. It's only good for the club. Yeah. And for us, we need players with big game experience. And if you look at our team and our spine, Nico's had, a game and a half or so in Origin, and, that has not gone to plan. But guys like Kennedy, Brailey, Trindle haven't been on those big stages outside of probably the Penrith game last year in the finals and a couple of other, first week finals games, but not to the level that we needed. So we need Brailey on like a kangaroo tour, coming back confident and full of that with a brand new contract under his belt, I think.
Let me ask you this. I have an opinion on this, but what's your opinion? Do you think this contract, I guess more media speculation than anything else, do you think it will affect his game at all?
Not at all. And again, I don't even think this is a real story if Perth wasn't announced already. Usually
Yeah.
these stories start to come up around the finals because the journos will sit there and look and go, well, we're in September. Who can people talk to in 2 months' time, right? And
Yeah.
it happens every year with like every team that's in the playoff mix. And we just watched it with Appy. And, Appy and the Tigers and Benji have had this huge storyline going around for months and how that's all played out. But look, I don't think that it's going to be too big of an issue. I don't think it's going to affect his form. He's known he's off contract for the last 6 weeks. Did you see there was a really interesting thing that Joel Kane put out there last week?
What's that?
So Joel Kane put up some stats, and it was around Blayke Brailey's running game before the Warriors, and then Blayke Brailey's game after he played the Warriors. Now, in that Warriors game, there was Sam Healy, and Sam Healy ran, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but say 9 times, right? And then the percentage of games where Blayke has run more than 6, or again, I can't remember what the stats were, has gone up exponentially through the roof. There's not been one game since that Warriors game where he has not run for a certain amount of meters. And he was sort of saying it was almost as if Sam Healy, the guy who wanted his job, came to Shark Park, showed him up, and now Brailey has had that fuse lit under him where he's now going. So again,
That's
my
interesting.
point to that is Brailey known that he's off contract for a very long time. He wants to stay in the Sharks. You see him walking his dog all the time around the area. He's one of the most approachable Sharks you could see out there. So
Absolutely.
He's a lifer like the rest of us, unfortunately for him.
He is. I know. I said this on the show after the game, but I saw him last week after an afternoon at the Sharks during the week, and he was getting out of his car, and I had my little recorder with me that I take, and I wanted to grab, but I was joking. I didn't want one, obviously, and he was like, I got no comment. And I went, I'm not going to ask you for a comment. And then he said something else that was very funny. It'll be a joke that remains between the two of us. But that right there told me, A, he's not going anywhere. Not that I needed him to tell me that. And B, he's the most chill guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah. And it's part of his identity being a Shark too. And somebody compared him to our version, I think it was actually you, our version of Jake Trbojevic down here. And, that couldn't be
That wasn't
true.
me, but that's good.
Yeah, and it goes back to, Gal talked about this, Hindmarsh has talked about this, but it's that saying, like when if you are to be blessed to win a comp and you look down at the socks that you're wearing, like what would mean more to you, right? And Gal said he kind of had that moment, that epitome, and was actually watching when he was talking to Matty Johns, and he said that the Spit Road killed the Manly deal because his wife couldn't deal with the traffic because they went to spend a weekend up there, and she said, I can't do this. The traffic's too bad on the Spit Road. So thankfully for that, but hopefully Blake doesn't need to go up to Manly and check out the Spit Road, but I don't think we'll get that far.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so and Gal said like the money, this was the second time Manly came in for him around 2012, and he said the money was basically the same, and he was going to do it, and then they went up there to spend a weekend out there because Manly was in a really good spot when the Sharks weren't doing too well, and then Manly won another comp, and he said he was sitting there watching the TV, looking at his wife saying he couldn't deal with traffic. But he said he couldn't be happy with how things worked out because, again, you look at his career, right? If he did go to Manly, he just becomes another, really good player. The fact he stays, he becomes a club legend. And Blayke is now in that run of form where we don't have a lot of guys at our club that are being talked to as the form player in the competition. We had Nico a few years ago. Before that was probably, Preston Campbell back in 2001. So Blake's now in that mold.
Is he a chance of winning the big award?
I don't know where he sat in terms of points, but if you look at it, guys like Harry Grant are competing against Jerome Hughes, Pappenhouse, and all that type of stuff in terms of points every single week. The run that he's had the last few games, he's definitely collected maximum points for the Sharks. Probably not against South on the weekend, but I think he's a really good shot for hooker of the year. But again, guys like Tom Starling have had great seasons down at Canberra too. So I just think it's the fact that Blayke has now compounded 2 really good seasons into a great season. And I think now people are starting to take notice because people like Reece Robson are now starting to be questioned versus Blayke, whereas Blayke was always kind of chasing Robson for a while there. And people are looking at Blayke going, well, he's a really good defender. His attack is really good. His running game is exceptional. And when Blayke kicks, he's got a really good kicking game too. It's probably one thing we should see a little bit more of. But he's a special player. And I think I mentioned this before. when Cameron Smith was retiring, there was rumors going that Melbourne were looking at Blayke Brailey, and they still had Harry Grant in their system. Like that's insane. So
yeah.
big Blake Flint fan over here, mate.
Yep. We all are. It's all going to be okay. He's not going to go anywhere, and I don't know. I don't think the deal will be done anytime soon. Like it could be, but I think it might.
Like they're far apart, though.
No. I just think that if it's up to the manager, which it shouldn't be, but if it's up to the manager, they might just leave it.
Yeah.
Maybe make the Sharks sweat or whatever. But
go through the final series, see if he gets picked in the Australian squad, maybe add an extra 50,000 to it.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're like, if they're confident about his form, which they should be, that would be the very smart thing to do. I don't think Blayke wants to take us to the cleaners. He knows that if he does that, there's a bunch of guys that he won't be playing with. So I think it's just a perfect combination of a really great player, a really sweet dude with club in mind. Like he may not be club first, like he may be Blayke first, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, like he's got a career here, but club is not that far behind Blayke in his mental state, in my opinion. So that's pretty good in this day and age. He's a little bit old school in that sense.
Yeah, and even like Jaden came along, and that was at a time where we were we were favoring experience, and there was that real fear that we were going to lose Blayke because we had Jaden, and the club ended up moving on Jaden to keep Blayke, and the West Tigers at the time were throwing big money at him to get him to go over there, and it seems like he's been tied on long contracts with us for a very long time. So I like the idea of a 5-year contract for him, and I know you're going to lose guys like Sam Healy and things like that because there's only one hooker in the team, but I think for us, Blayke is the best chance that we have to have a guy that's going to stick with us, be a top tier talent, and not break the bank. That was hard to say.
He's certainly proven himself, and I'm not suggesting it's been the last month. Like he's the most games in a row currently for an NRL player. It's not the record, but it's like 120 something. It's the most currently for anyone in the NRL. So he's consistent. He barely misses tackles. The big thing on him is he didn't attack. Well, he's been attacking this year. He's been great. He was attacking last year, and he was great.
And the year before.
I saw some ridiculous comments on the socials by people who should know better, saying that it's only recency bias, and it's only the last month that he's been doing this. He's off contracts. He's playing out his skin. It's like, what game are you watching? He's been unbelievable for a number of years. There's been a few hiccups along the way. He did bomb a 5-on-1 against the Chooks the other year, and we get it. Stuff happens, but he's been one of our best players for a long time. And at his very worst, he's probably a 7.5, and at his very best, he's a 10. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and just having that connection with the club throughout all the junior years, and you touched on this a little bit before. If he didn't have that connection, then I would be a little bit more concerned. And you go back to a guy that was one of his teammates back then, Bronson Cherry. Now, the noise always around Bronson was he wants to leave. He's not happy. And again, it goes back to even like with, back when we had Keith Galloway. And it was always, the Dragons want Keith Galloway. Keith Galloway's not going to stay, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So there's certain noise that you always hear about certain players. And then there are other guys who just become a part of the fabric of the DNA of a club. And the Braileys are part of that fabric that we have at the Sharks. And Blayke has been at the forefront of that. Like going back on the point about hearing about Chad before he made his debut, we were hearing about Blayke for years. And, if you look at some of those rep teams that he was in as a junior player in that, like he was always in that upper echelon of players. And it doesn't always pan out. We went through the Michael Leitcher experiment, right? Or Leitcher, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
And it didn't pan out.
There's a stack of those guys. There's Stewie Mills. There's a stack of those guys.
Yeah, and I think Michael's family were involved in the club in recruitment and retention or some sort of development role at the time too. But it was always kind of like it just didn't feel like it was going to stay. And then the first opportunity they had to go, they went, right? And there was different circumstances for different players there with Bronson and Galloway and all that. But for Blayke Brailey, he has always stayed, always re-signed early, and always got the deals done. And again, that team is now being built around him and Nico, because when he gets out of dummy half and brings Nico onto the ball, that's when Nico looks the best. And there's been no coincidence that the uptick in form from Nico has been Blake's recent run. And recency bias, sure, because his last 2 months has been great.
Yeah.
But he was the player of the year for the last 2 years before that.
Yes. And he was running for the past 2 years compared to where he was before that. So they may not still be amazing numbers, but he's always been going up in runs, trending up for the last 3 years. So to say it's like, oh, he's discovered the run recently, it's like, no, that's not the case. He's just been building towards it. And sure, he's peaking now, and that's awesome. But it's fun. It's fun to see him reach these heights. It's fun to have people talk about him.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's kind of fun just because I know the end result. It's kind of fun that people want him. It's like, well, that's cool.
Well, and also too, it's not just the running game; it's the service that he provides. And again, if you go back and listen to some post game shows and things like that, the one thing, especially Michael Ennis talks about this all the time, is where Blayke hits the players with the ball on their chest, and there's no reaching for it, there's no bad passes, and the service is immaculate. So when you add in, there are some players that are really good at just service, and that was probably Blayke for the first little bit of his career where he didn't have that sort of running game that we all wanted to see because we saw it in the juniors. But now that he's got the service plus the running game, this is why he's being talked about in a new echelon and a new tier in terms of hookers, because, you know, he was never really a guy that they spoke about for being a New South Wales contender or an Australian hooker contender until recently, right? So it's great to see, but you just can't imagine him in another jersey. Like, it just would feel so wrong. And I think he would just start laughing at that prospect. I don't think he would even strongly consider it unless we said, hey, we don't want you, which is not the case.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he's also a rugby league lifer. So if we didn't want him, other people would. Like, he's you know, this is his life. But you know, thank goodness he's a Shark through and through. So yeah, but it's, you know, we've spent a bit of time. I'm here, not always happy to spend time on Blayke, but he's not going anywhere. I know it seems like that. I know that certain parts of the media want you to believe that and click on their stories and watch their shows. But just because he hasn't signed doesn't mean he's not going to. And it would take something monumental for this not to go through. So anything is possible, but I'm telling you right now, he's going to be a Shark. I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but it will happen. Kieran, we're going to let you go, my man. Great chatting with you. Somber episode in a lot of ways, although we do celebrate the lives of Taite and Frenzy, of course, and we will raise a glass to them on the weekend, no doubt. Please get behind Taite's fundraiser. You can go back and find the info, but it's at the Yacht House Hotel on the 31st of August. And there'll be more. If you see social media, if you follow a lot of those same people that we do, and we'll post some stuff as well, but the info will be out there, I'm sure. Kieran, we'll see you down at the game. Can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Have a great week. We'll get some more episodes out for all of our friends listening. And until then, up Cronulla, and like, subscribe, all that kind of superficial stuff, because it's actually important to us. And have a good week. We'll talk to you soon. Up Cronulla.